The Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast is not going to crash out. The Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast doesn't actually know what crashing out means. Welcome to episode 77 of the Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host, Sock Jig. You can follow me on Twitter at Sock Jig and on Instagram as well. For this episode, the topic rundown, I talk a bit about the Corteiz design contest that Clint had on Twitter. I talk about sneaker retail stores having a rough time, like Sneakers and Stuff, Likelihood in Seattle, and Stadium Goods as well too. I have a small segment about the LA fires and some thoughts on like what would you do if you had to evacuate your home. And it's not exactly like these are the 5 sneakers I'd say from a burning house type of list or anything. It's more thinking about, what it means to own things and what are the things that are truly irreplaceable, especially when you have a large sneaker collection. And of course, for the main segment, I'm talking about the Bred 185 high release. And I talk about the stock numbers and how it's being distributed to 23 shops across North America. And of course, Jordan Brand's fire hose marketing for it, the all-out blitz that they've been doing, and day by day new pieces of news, and how there's been a kind of a disconnect and even resentment in the community. And I've taken things a bit slow in January and haven't always been online during the day reading the community's discourse. So oftentimes I would catch up on it at the end of the day. And sometimes when I'd read back, I'd be like, wow, people are really mad today. Like people just went off on like DJ Khaled this whole day one day. And so it's a little bit different experience reading it at the end of the day where it's like, well, what did DJ Khaled do? Whereas in real time, it's like, yeah, fuck DJ Khaled. So a lot of my thoughts I've kind of formed in a different way than I usually do because I'm like kind of thinking about it afterwards instead of in real time. So we'll talk about the marketing, we'll talk about the backlash, we'll talk about the stock numbers and all that. But overall, this is not really a year in review episode. I kind of missed the window for it just because of the timing. The last episode was at the end of the year and very focused on something else. But I always do a State of the Sneaker Game episode at the beginning of the year anyways, which will kind of be that format anyway. So where I talk about the state of where sneaker brands are, where collaborators are, retailers and resellers, and whatever else fits. I also did a predictions segment this time last year where I promised a pair of socks to the best prediction. I haven't forgot about it. I'm just moving it to that episode as well too. I also skipped doing the worst in the world of sneakers thread that I usually did at the end of the year on Twitter as well too. After my last episode where I was talking about, being positive and growing and letting things slide, I guess I just wasn't in the headspace to then be making a bunch of jokes about all the dumb shit that happened. And now it's kind of a little bit too late. And number one would have been that Trump at SneakerCon thing anyways. So I'll bring it back next year. But really quickly, just my personal favorites of the year. My most worn sneaker of the year was the Adidas Song for the Mute Shadow Turf. I love that sneaker. It's on sale on Essence site for like $75 US in scattered sizes. So my favorite sneaker of the year was the Action Bronson Scorpius New Balance one. I was lucky enough to get that pair and I think it's just fire. Other ones that I liked a lot was the Joe Freshgoods 990 V6, the blue one. The AE1, of course, I love that. The Kids of Immigrants Sundermax, that was a good shoe as well too. The Undefeated Terra Humera, the toothpaste colorway, that's like the only sneaker I paid resale for. And even then I paid $162 where the retail was $160. So $2 over retail. And that's the only sneaker that I bought on the apps at all this year. So I did pretty good on getting away from the apps. And other sneakers I really like, but I didn't cop, or the Matcha Daniel Cathari New Balance 991 V2 and the CDG foam posits. I thought those were awesome, and I wasn't able to get a pair this year. Also, just to finish up the end of the year stuff, I did the best sneakers of 2024 64 sneaker tournament on Twitter as well too, and the winner was the Futura Dunk over the Black Cement 3. And I was kind of shocked that the Black Cement 3 went that far, getting to the final. But I guess there just wasn't enough like truly fire sneakers. There was just a lot of very good sneakers. And so the finals is usually like the best of the best. So I guess in this case, it just went to it being a classic and it having a lot of fans. So there's always going to be more Jordan 3 fans than there are going to be Saucony or Asics fans. It's important to remember that these brackets are basically a popularity contest. And Most of the time, if you really like a plucky underdog sneaker that is very good, it might make it past a round or two, but eventually it's going to get beat by like a Jordan or Nike sneaker just because they're going to have more fans for it. So thank you to everyone who took the time to vote and retweet and share. Oftentimes I see people complaining about some random engagement farming account like Kicks on Fire or someone doing some bullshit. And I've done the same thing as well too. I've complained about it as well too. But then, if you click through on the person complaining about Kicks on Fire, you never actually see them promoting anyone else doing anything good or positive in the community as well too. So it's fine to call out like bullshit empty calorie content, but then I think we all should be promoting actual good content and promoting the good people doing good content. And finally, some updates from the last episode. Thank you to the people who gave some nice feedback to me. I really appreciate it. People were like, I'm glad you kind of settled this thing with the Complex guys. And I will say I did message both Brendan Dunn and Matt Welty at Complex, and kind of what I basically said in the last episode. And I gave like a TLDR version of what I said in the episode, a more personalized version. And I gave a link to the full episode if they wanted to hear or not. It really didn't matter, but whatever we said, I'll keep private, but I will say that it was positive. So I'm thankful for that. And, I'm glad. It's nice to just kind of have it in the rearview mirror and not be actively thinking about it anymore. I don't think we're going to be friends or anything, but from my point of view, there's not going to be any overly aggressive personal remarks either way. So that's a summary of the episode, and let's get it going. But first, on feet, pickups, and skips. On feet lately, earlier I was wearing the Spiridon OG. I think I'll be wearing that sneaker a lot. I really like it. It's a very comfortable sneaker. I went out one day and I wore the Rick Owens vintage suede again, which were just, I guess, I hadn't put away and by the door. I also been wearing the Double Taps Hoka Gore-Tex lows that released earlier. They're like a trail shoe, but it lightly snowed here, so it actually works pretty fine for it. For pickups, I picked up the Kith Salomon XT4K, the white one where it says like Kith on the side. I got that from Early Access, I think. And then I also picked up the HAL Studios Asics Gel Keanu 20, the one with the toddler straps. I just got an email that it's on sale, and then like a coupon worked as well that they had on the site. And so it came out to like $120. And that was like a gripe I had earlier. Like, why is this sneaker like $200? So $120, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I'll buy it. It could be useful. And then I opened the box and I saw the straps and I was like, I might have the buyer's remorse. I'll give it a try in the spring here once the snow is gone. I also picked up the Travis Zoomfield Jacks chocolate ones. I don't have those in hand yet, but at least these sneakers are 170 instead of the 200 range that the Jumpman Jacks have been. And hopefully they fit like the Spiridon since they have the same midsole, but we'll see. For skipping all this Yeezy orthopedic slipper shoes and anything that he's doing for $20. Those are the slippers they give elderly people at care facilities because they might be easy to put on and they prevent fall. And he even had a commercial during the Grammys for his site and stuff. And, his site has got like basically Nazi merch on there. It's inspired by the Munich Olympic Games, 1936 Nazi logos that they had. And like, I guess everyone is just okay with this. One of my resolutions was to read more, and I've been reading more books on history. And I read one about World War I, and I've been leading up and reading about the lead up to World War II. And so when you're reading these books, you realize that, hey, this Hitler guy, he was not a good person. He should not be someone that we want to celebrate. So, I am officially declaring this sneaker podcast an anti-Hitler sneaker podcast. Have any other sneaker podcast taken this position? I don't know, but I definitely am. So for all his $20 drop shipping bullshit stuff that he's doing with Nazi-inspired stuff and designed by Gasha or whatever, he can keep it. For misses, the one that I tried on and failed really quickly was the Jound New Balance 993. But, it turns out it wasn't even attainable. There's no CAPTCHA or question to cart or anything. I got a 22-minute queue and I just closed it. There are some newer bots, I think one called MakeBot, if I recall correctly, that worked on it. And, that's just how it's going to go when there's no CAPTCHA, no nothing, and they don't really care. And, Jound is not really one that uses EQL or raffles. They just like let it go and whoever gets it, and they ship it out. Another topic that happened a few weeks back was Corteiz had a design contest, and this all started when someone dared to criticize some of his pieces that he posted on Twitter. And he said basically like, you designed me a 10-piece collection. And when the guy was obviously not a designer or anything, Clint opened it up to anyone to design a 10-piece collection. And longtime listeners of this podcast know my position on design contests. This was covered in detail in episode 9 of this podcast. So go listen to that if you want to hear like the 20-30 minute version of this. But the short version is that the design contest concept itself is ethically wrong, like in the design ethics world. Because even if you play by the book and you reward people the right way and don't steal designs, that you are a good person, that does not mean that someone else doing the same thing won't steal everything that they got. So ethically, the entire concept is wrong, even if you are a good person doing it the right way. So that's the TLDR, but episode 9, go listen to that. So it's just disappointing to me to see professional designers devalue themselves like this. Like, I get it. If you're young, you might not have learned about ethics of your own industry, but you really should. But unfortunately, this is not really a young designer thing. I've seen established people in the industry do this shit all the time. Hidden New York was the example I used from episode 9, but Jeff Staple has done it since then, and many others as well too. So, and I commented about this on Twitter that design is the only field where some of the leading people within it devalue it to the point where they think it's no harder than a coloring contest. Color this sheet of paper and you could be just like me. That's how easy it is. And so no one else does this. No one else says, make me some furniture out of that tree over there and I'll give you $200. No one else says, design me a bridge and we'll name it after you. Because the people who are doing that are experts in that field and you value the expertise and everything that they bring to it. Whereas design is no different than a coloring contest. But I honestly did not have to dive in with this Clint Corteiz thing. I saw a ton of people criticizing him about this, and a lot of the quote tweets and stuff criticizing him had like a lot of retweets and likes and stuff. So I was really glad to see that people are coming around to this, that this is not a good idea, not a thing that people should be doing. They should not just be putting their whole portfolio out on Twitter for free for anyone to just take. For Corteiz though, for Clint himself, just think about this. What's to lose and what's to gain about this? This is like something I always bring myself back to thinking about. Like, what is there to gain and what is there to lose? And often there's a lot to lose and not much to gain. And that's the case here. Like, what's there to gain? He showed the world that designing a 10-piece collection is hard work. Like, that was kind of the intention. Like, you can't do it. You try to do it. But even this, I'm not sure if he accomplished this, since people in the replies and the quote tweets, you might see some of these collections that people did, and they might be actual designers, like, hey, those are not that bad, actually. So I'm not even sure if he was successful in that. So really, at the end of the day, he just kind of won an internet argument. And that's just how, social media and Twitter is, I guess, these days. But what's there to lose? There's a lot to lose. People think you're sensitive, that you can't take criticism, that you couldn't just ignore this, and that you had to say something. It must have really stung. Otherwise, why would you lash out? Why would you say anything? What else is there to lose? People think you're going to rip these people off. Is that actually good for business? And sure, he handled it with humor and stuff by printing them all off. And so maybe he fixed it a little bit with that. But really, Corteiz, Clint, he's a brand on the rise. You know how hard it is to be that brand on the rise that people are looking to ascend, and the people are cheering for you and rooting for you. You know how many other new brands out there can say this? So there's more important things that you should be doing than fighting someone on Twitter who said your track jacket was mid or whatever. Does Hellstar or Spider or any other, upcoming streetwear brand, whoever it is, have a Nike collaboration? Have more Nike collaborations coming up? No, it's literally just you. So there's a lot riding on your shoulders. So I don't know if design me some bullshit on Twitter is the right tack to take. So one thing I've been saying a lot about collaborators in the, what did I call it? I can't call it Collab Lab. The Collab Research Center. I don't know. I can't remember what I called it last episode. Is that one of the key things is that you have to have your name and your face out there. That you just can't be someone behind the scenes anymore. You could back in the day, and those brands that didn't do this are established and they're for the most part fine for now. Some stores and stuff might be hurting, as we'll talk about next, but branding wise, it's harder than ever to not do this. So you have to have your name and face out there. The danger is if you show too much of your personality, if you're always showing that you're clearly gotten to, that you can't take criticism, that you might rip people off, that's not going to be good for business if you show too much of who you really are. So you got to be a name, you got to be a face, you got to be out there, but some shit, you got to just let it slide. There have been some stories in the news recently about sneaker retail stores hurting, stores like Sneakers and Stuff, Likelihood in Seattle, and Stadium Goods as well. For Sneakers and Stuff, it seems like they've done a bankruptcy procedure, whatever they do in Europe, and they're restructuring. They've already closed the Japan and the US stores, but it seems like the European stores will remain open, I think, and they've been having 40 to 50% off sales and they're hurting. And, this is just the state of what sneakers are right now. The sneaker boom and everyone buying GRs and stuff is over. And another one was Likelihood store in Seattle. And they actually made a plea on Instagram that they really need your support in these next 2 months. And they announced a big in-store sale. Reading the tea leaves is basically saying, things are not looking great. This is a really tough time. We could use your support. I don't think I've ever seen that before from a store. So it was kind of sad reading it. But at the same time, I was like, I'm glad they just kind of at least tried something instead of just quietly closing. So if it works, all the power to them. But it's kind of what I've been saying for not only just the brands and even for sneaker retail stores, whenever there's a next boom and there's a next cycle and new stores open up, that they have to start getting more personal. They have to start associating a name and a face as owners or managers so people have more of a relationship to that store. And Likelihood has done a little bit of this. If you've seen them on Instagram or Twitter, they do try to have a sense of humor about things. So all the best to them. The third one on the list was Stadium Goods with their announcement of their main shop closing. They still have a big online presence, but Stadium Goods has always been a retail destination, a travel tourism destination to me at least. And so I'm sure they have a big online presence and loyal customers that buy from them online and trust them. But Stadium Goods being online only doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They'd still need some sort of location. So that's the main draw, especially when you're a tourist and you're coming into New York. And, anytime Joe LaPuma brought in a celebrity for sneaker shopping, that's marketing for Stadium Goods. So, when it comes to tourists, they will pay the money because they need it in hand because they're getting on a flight and leaving. They're not going to, it's not like StockX where it's cheaper, but you're not going to get it in hand for weeks. So that's the draw. And I guess they still have a smaller location a block away. And that's where they've done the consignment shop. And it seems like maybe they're going to do what I called the lean store concept in my Future of Sneaker Retail episode, which is episode 59, where I said basically stores need to start having a smaller lean store with limited product that kind of focuses on an in-store experience and a white glove service and then everything else online. So perhaps that's the direction they're going and perhaps that'll work for them. But obviously resale shops have been hurting a lot too with the sneaker bubble popping. For Stadium Goods, it meant they had to go from selling high value items like Nike Off-Whites that they, sell plenty of and they make a lot of profit on to selling, Panda Dunks where you get low profits, but you make up for it in volume. Asics, the same thing. They probably sold a ton of Asics and made a few dollars in each. But Stadium Goods, they've had other issues too when it comes to changing corporate owners from Farfetch to this Korean place called Coupang, I think. And when you have a corporate overlord, they're probably, very closely looking at the margins that you're making too. The other thing about Stadium Goods is they started squeezing the resellers that consign with them. And if you start squeezing them a little too much, they'll just go elsewhere. They're street smart hustlers in New York. They'll find extra money somewhere else then if you're going to give them less money. So that's cutting off a vital supply route, giving them extra fees and new rules. And, like I said about Stadium Goods, you expect them to be presented as the top, the cream of the crop, like Flight Club is at that level. You don't expect them to, move to a mall in New Jersey or something. You got to be Stadium Goods in Soho. So hopefully the lean store concept works out for them. Hopefully they can have Joe LaPuma in their small consignment location with Playboy Cardi or something flailing his arms and hitting the side of the walls on each side. So whatever it is, I hope it works out for them. I've been thinking a lot about the fires that happened in LA and the devastation that it caused. And obviously, I feel for anyone who lost lives and their friends and families and their homes and businesses. Just losing everything, losing your home and having to start over, and just how hard that would be for, I really do feel for them. But, once the immediate danger was abated, you start thinking about the nature of owning things, just watching the news over the weeks. And you start thinking about, what do you really need? And as a sneakerhead, needs and wants is something that you think about all the time, especially when it comes to collectors and the hot sneaker that you like. And if it's something that you like, do you have to buy it? And just this fire stuff just shows you like just how much of a luxury it is to have that kind of thought, to have that kind of huge collection, to be able to amass things over a lifetime, whether it be sneakers or memorabilia or vinyl records, whatever it is, whatever you've built over a lifetime, collecting meaning and memory. But if there's a raging fire approaching, you realize how most of that stuff does not matter. Sure, some might be sentimental. Like, there's people who got married in sneakers and you have certain sentimental sneakers or something like that. But the vast majority of sneakers are replaceable. And, I was just looking around my office one day and I was just thinking, if I had to evacuate, what would I take with me? And I saw my MacBook Pro. I would take that because I would probably need it. Other stuff, the sneakers, I probably wouldn't take. Like, if you had 30 minutes to evacuate, I probably wouldn't take any of that stuff. I probably wouldn't even think of sneakers. Obviously, you'd be taking care of the people in your home and your pets, and then packing an overnight bag full of clothing and toiletries or sundries. And I'm not even sure what sundries are, so maybe you don't need sundries. And then whatever cash or jewelry or valuables that you have that you can take with you. Sentimental items that you can grab, like a kid's teddy bear, maybe a photo album if it's like on the shelf, family heirlooms, anything that's small and handy that you can actually grab and go, and not that something that's in a box in a basement somewhere. Pack it up and get the fuck out. And then I was thinking, like, what if you had 3 hours? What would you take then? Only then would I probably consider taking sneakers. And I was just thinking, I would probably just take whatever dead stock sneakers that I had that are of high value that I know I could quick sell. The Yeezy Zions and the Air Max 90 Mars Landing, those could stay. And whatever Travis SB that I haven't worn yet, I can take and quick sell. And I was talking to my friend Brendan a few weeks ago about these fires, and he wondered how many like Kobe PEs and Kobe memorabilia must have been lost in the LA region alone. And yeah, you realize there must have been a ton of that. Conan O'Brien has a podcast, and his assistant Sona is a co-host, and she lost her house in Altadena, and she was on an episode kind of giving an update about what happened. And during the episode, she talked about one of the items that she lost in the house in the fire was a signed photo by Kobe Bryant that was personalized to her from the time that he was on Conan's show. Like, that is obviously something that's like irreplaceable and sentimental. But for like sneakerheads and sneaker collections, if you have like a huge collection of OGs that are like, collectible and sentimental, you probably can't take them all with you. And like, say if you had the OG Bred ones from 1985, if you had 20 minutes to leave the house, are you taking them? Probably not. If you had 3 hours to evacuate, would you think of them? Maybe, but maybe not. But I've never been that type of collector, the one that meticulously kept everything for a long time, no matter if it's crumbled or whatever, building meaning and sentiment to every little box over the years. There's a time in like 2015, I got rid of most of my sneakers that were older than 05 or 06 because I was like, these are just about hitting the 10-year mark. They're probably going to crumble. I probably need to do that again. I probably need to go through and look through the sneakers that are older than 2014 that are hitting that mark now. But just think about this, I don't have any sentimental sneakers. And sure, there's sneakers that have a lot of meaning, and especially ones that were, say, gifted to me and do mean a lot. But those are ultimately replaceable. I could just probably buy them again on StockX or GOAT. The price might be way higher than when I got them, but they are replaceable. But if I lost my entire house, I'm not thinking about replacing those sneakers. I'm thinking about my house. So, this is one of those things where if you think about it too long, you can start getting anxiety about it. So, thankfully, I did not lose my house. And thankfully, I can buy sneakers for my sneaker collection. But I do feel for others that lost their house, that lost their collection, that lost everything. And then are now having to rebuild their house, and all the other stuff does not matter. The sneaker stuff does not matter. And just think about that, I was thinking like, maybe I should get serious about actually downsizing my sneakers, because that shows you what's really important. And it's the people around you, it's your experiences, it's your pets and your precious stuffed animals or whatever. And so maybe you don't need every single sneaker that's coming out. But then the next day, Jordan Brand is like, hey, once you finish pondering over there, we got just a sneaker for you, the Bred 185 High. But there's a slight catch, is that you have to live close to one of these 23 shops. So, let's get back on the sneaker cycle here. You might not get the sneaker, but we got a shit ton of marketing for you. So how about that? You sneakerheads love that shit. So how about you lap that up instead? So let's talk about this Bred one next. All right, finally, let's talk about the Bred ones. And I haven't been online as much in the trenches of Twitter and Instagram as I usually am, for this last month at least. So a lot of the times at the end of the day when I'm catching up on the timeline, there's been a lot of discourse about this sneaker. And so it's been a little bit of a different experience reading up on it at the end of the day instead of in real time. And sometimes I'm seeing it and be like, oh, those are valid points. And then other times I'm like, wow, people really like spun themselves out of control on this one issue. So there's been a lot of discourse on the sneaker itself, the marketing of the sneaker, the release strategy, who's getting it, who's not getting it, a lot of praise for it, and a lot of backlash as well too, as I said. So let's talk about it. I'll give you my thoughts about it, but I wanted to say, like, this is from the community. I am of the community. I'm for the community. So a lot of the discourse, might not have been as healthy, and some of it has been totally fine and healthy, which I'll talk about. But, I'm Mr. Brightside, so I'm going to take a Mr. Brightside approach to it. I'm also going to try something new from ESPN Around the Horn style, where I play this positive sound anytime I like something about this sneaker or the release or the marketing, and I'll play this negative sound anytime there's something I don't like. So like a +1 or a -1, if you will. And we'll see how many positive points have there been and how many negatives have there been. So when it comes to the design of the shoe, I'm sure you've probably heard the story by now. It's an entirely new build to the 85 High. It's the most historically accurate version of the OG ever made. And I was laughing about that. Like, what are they going to say in 6 years from now when it's time to re-release the Bred one again? Are they going to be like, no, really, this time it's the most accurate. Last time we got close, but this time it's the most accurate. Trust me on this one. Or are they going to do the opposite and be like, hey, here's a wider release version and it's not the most historically accurate, but you might get a pair this time. Probably not, but you might. And on the sneakers app, they had like a behind the design session where they're talking about how they created it from scratch, and they did CT scans of OGs, and there's pictures of all these designers and stuff like holding rulers and protractors and stuff, and they melted the tag on the tongue with a hairdryer. And so that is the reason why these are $250, because they had to buy a hairdryer and melt the tag on. So $250 is a lot of money, especially without a special box or anything else. It just comes in a regular Jordan 1 box, and that's it. It's just a regular shoe that otherwise was $160, and then it became $180, and this one is $250. And early on, there was like a video that Brendan Dunn posted because they got the in-hand pair. And in that, he, seems like he's talked to the Jordan Brand design team, and he asked them about the price and why that price is so high. And they give an answer that was like, like when in Seinfeld, when Kramer is trying to fire Raquel Welch, he's like, well, it seems that due to the vagaries of the production parameter vis-a-vis the fragmenting of the audience due to, cable television, carnivals, water parks, we're going to have to charge $250 for these Bred ones. Okay, I got to go buy. But what he actually said in the video was, the price is high due to rarity, supply and demand, and intentionality. So to put it more plainly, they are $250 because they can. They know it's ultra limited. They know it'll sell. So why not keep more of that money for ourselves? It's not exactly a good catchphrase or anything, but I always say you can treat sneakerheads like shit, and Nike knows this, Jordan Brand knows this, and they know that they can treat sneakerheads like shit, and they will pay $250 for these. And this is basically the Ticketmaster approach. That's all they've done. They just took the model from Ticketmaster and brought it over here to sneakers. Ticketmaster raised prices across the board when they saw StubHub and resellers and others, flipping tickets and taking a huge cut. And they were like, we want in on that cut. And so that's all this is Jordan Brand saying, we want in on that cut. Ticketmaster knows they could treat their customers like shit. Jordan Brand, Nike knows they could treat their customers like shit. So, this might be the first time that Jordan Brand has done this, that Nike has done this, but, mark my words, it won't be the last. You'll see a lot more of these $250 sneakers just for, intentionality or the vagaries of production and whatever. So they're going to make a little behind the design video and say the price is high because they had to send away for special protectors. Even those geometry sets that you got in elementary school, they had to send away for those. And, that's a lot of money. So that's why these are $250. Then, of course, there's the issue of the stock numbers and just how limited they are. And early on, there was indications that these are going to be hard to get. And honestly, Bred ones have always been very hard to get. So that's not really any surprise. But then day by day, there's more and more news. No, these are going to be treated like a quick strike or something. And, numbers went from 50K to 23K to then Complex saying it could be 10K. And then even Sneaker Files after that said it could be considerably less than 10K. And 10K is probably North America then. I guess that's the number everyone is kind of settled on. But worldwide, there might be more. And then when it comes to distribution, the key part is that it's going to be 23 shops only. And even before this news came out, I was joking about it on Twitter that it's probably going to be a gimmick, like 23 stores get 23 pairs each. And as I said later, that, you don't need to have insider information about this kind of stuff. You just need to know how Jordan Brand's playbook works. So it seems like it's not like an ultra quick strike where there's less than 1,000 pairs or whatever. That's what it'd be if it was 23 shops were getting 23 pairs or whatever. But most likely these won't be on Sneakers app, and maybe Nike would do some events for the All-Star game in San Francisco or something. But so far right now, it seems like it's only the neighborhood shops in North America getting in those 23 shops. And then how those shops will be picking winners, no one really knows. We've been seeing some VIPs getting envelopes, and those are either people who are probably going to be friends and family or best customers. I don't know. They haven't really announced it. The week of the release, they'll probably announce it. And then most likely for the majority of the pairs, it'll probably be a raffle. I think it's a safe assumption to make. No clue how, if it's an online raffle with in-store pickup or go in-store and line up and submit your name or whatever. I know EQL has a in-store raffle option as well too. So if someone wants to give EQL a cut to handle the raffle for them, that they can do that as well too. Again, one of those other things where the details will probably come out later. But the other thing that we've heard is white glove service is expected. So I'm assuming each store is going to be expected to have some sort of activation or event or, some big black bars on something. I'm not sure if that's going to be for the raffle when people are lining up, or if it's going to be for the raffle winners, where if some winner comes in, the customer service has to have a white glove on, or I don't know, probably not an actual white glove, but you know what I mean. Something special for the winners or the people entering the store to enter the raffle. So when it comes to the 23 shops selected, the neighborhood shops selected, it was an odd selection of shops. Some glaring exceptions that you notice right away, like there's no Kith. Canada only has 2 stores and they're only in Toronto, so nothing nearby for me in Vancouver here. Nothing in San Francisco, nothing in Seattle, nothing in North Carolina, and only 1 in Chicago. And some stores I hadn't even heard of, like Grinmore in Oklahoma City. I thought it said Gryffindor at first, so I don't even know there could be a newer shop there. And I was wondering about this on Twitter, how do they pick these stores? Are they just rewarding stores that are newer, that need some sort of extra push? Or are these stores that have politicked for it, that they just politic better than the other ones? Is Kith on the outs, but like Grinmore in Oklahoma City is in? And Lois Akeni from Snobette replied to this tweet saying that, there could be a focus on a lot of POC, person of color owned stores as well too. And if you look at the list, I guess a lot of them do qualify. There are some exceptions like Oneness, Better Gift Shop in Toronto, and even Concepts. I think the founder is from Lebanon, I believe. I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up after. But Zappos has an ownership stake in Concepts, and Zappos is owned by Amazon. And so Jeff Bezos is a partial owner of Concepts too. And then the other thing that people have commented on is that the list of shops given are a lot of shops that are known to backdoor. Obviously, I think every single store backdoors to some degree, but the commentary that people shared was that some of these stores backdoor a lot. So a lot of that, I can't exactly verify. But, some we know for sure, like Trophy Room, for example. Even the feds have said Monnier backdoors to China. But other than that, it's just what the local people know. So you kind of have to trust their judgment on it. But again, if Jordan Brand is expecting some sort of activation and white glove service, and then stores have to sell retail sneakers and they have to be, sold out the front door, then maybe we won't see a lot of it. But the resale price of these sneakers being $1,000 plus means there'll still be some. Just doing the math on it is the math portion of the sneaker podcast here. If there's 23 shops, and if you look at the list, there's actually 29 locations. That's because Undefeated has 3, Monnier has 3, and Bait has 2. So that's 29 locations. So 10K stock, 29 location. The math works out to like 344 per store. So even if you round that down to 300 per store, and say 25% of 300 is backdoored, that's 75 pairs out the back door and 225 for the public. So, it's more than a single size run. It's still a chance. So I'm saying there's a chance. And then, of course, there's been a lot of discussion about the marketing blitz that Jordan Brand has been doing and kind of the slow drip of news that they've been doing, the tactic they've been using of where they unveil a new strategy or a new detail about the release every single day so that they're in the news every single day. And it's sort of worked. Like this started from early on, it being a very limited shoe to then announcing that it's only 23 shops. And then being leaked that there's only like 10K pairs. And then the Nike suit guy makes an appearance during all this. The social media accounts are disabled or banned. The banned boxes are on that statue of Jordan outside the Chicago arena. There's banned boxes on the site. There's DJ Khaled getting a pair. And everyone is so mad that DJ Khaled got a pair at this point because they're kind of almost sick of this marketing. And, about that, Jordan is just loyal to his friends. And for whatever reason, he likes DJ Khaled and will always give him a pair. The suit guy was also at Nike headquarters giving out citations or gift cards or whatever it was. I don't know if that was the best approach to do it, but it worked. It was in the news that day. It was all over Nice Kicks and Complex and all that kind of stuff. Then during the Grammys, they debuted the full Band One commercial. And even in that commercial, Chris Gibbs of Union is in the commercial, and he's got a band bar over his hat or something. And meanwhile, Union isn't even getting the shoe. Just like we talked about, there's just an odd mix of stores getting these sneakers and very notable ones not getting them. And the main criticism of all this marketing blitz is, why do this big rollout, this big marketing blitz for a sneaker that no one can get? Not sneakerheads, not casuals, hardly anyone can get it. So why have this huge orchestrated campaign where you're in the news every single day, either through some marketing activation or your suit guy at headquarters, or things are strategically leaked to people at Complex? Why do all that fuss for something that no one can get? And this is valid criticism. And it's sort of come out since then that I guess this is going to be the theme for the whole year for Jordan Brand, this band theme. So I'm not sure how that exactly is going to apply for other sneakers since band has always been about the Bred one. But whatever it is, I guess we'll see it play out. But it's natural, obviously, for fans on Twitter, for discourse to be upset about this kind of stuff because they don't know what the strategy is, and due to the drip by drip nature of it, they're not going to know. And it's natural for someone who's very involved to not wait to let it play out, but I guess we're going to have to let it play out. But one thing I want to say about fans and casuals especially is, and I sort of mentioned this in the last episode, and honestly, there's always a thread through all the episodes that kind of tie together eventually at some point, but about fans and casual fans is like, when you are a fan of something, you want the marketing to be good for everyone. You want it to be good for yourself as a fan, but also for a casual audience. And when you're a casual person, marketing, of course, plays a part in your purchasing decisions, and you buy it and you wear it and you move on with your life. And Do other things that you care about, because being a fan about sneakers doesn't matter. You just move on. But when you're a fan, a sneakerhead, you're invested. You're invested in the sneaker, in sneaker brands, in sneaker culture, the social media accounts that you follow, and the podcasts that you listen to. So that just means that you want it to be good for everyone. But sometimes I will see fans become like overly concerned about what casuals will think. The casual fan is not going to understand this. They're just on the site trying to buy their son Kenny some dunks. Why is there bandbars and everything? Little Kenny's not going to get his dunks. Mom's going to be very confused on this site. To this I say that if you are a sneakerhead and you're very, very concerned about the experience of a casual, might I suggest just fuck them. Like, who gives a shit about them? Let the casual fan worry about it for those 2 seconds, because the next moment they're going to move on with their life and not think about it. Meanwhile, because you're a fan who's very involved with it, you will continue to think about it. And of course, I am a sneakerhead. I have a sneaker podcast, so I do talk about things much more than a lot of people do, than the vast majority of people do. But I don't get upset about it, is what I'm saying. I guess this is a Mr. Brightside for you if you're finding yourself upset about what casuals think. Fuck them, is what I think. But back to what we're talking about, the marketing blitz and the criticism of it, which I called valid. And, the goal of marketing should be to uplift the product and uplift the brand, to make you feel better about the product and to make you feel better about the brand. So then you can go purchase that product and feel good. And right now, while we're waiting for this sneaker to release, do you feel good? Do you feel uplifted by Jordan Brand? Probably not, because that is just not how hype marketing works. It's its own creation, really. The point, of course, is to generate hype and build anticipation. And in the last episode, I had a segment which I canceled, but it was a segment about Legend Blues and the Stash Air Max 95s and even the Black Cement 3s sitting. And basically I was saying, like, if Jordan Brand doesn't want them to sit, if Nike doesn't want those products to sit, all they have to do is to restrict the stock. Because there's always an ebb and flow in sneakers. We know this. We're even with the Jordan 1 this past year. So when things have been ebbing for too long, the brand are going to say it's time to flow. And that's all the Jordan Brand has done here. They've begun the flow, and the marketing for this has been a fire hose flow. But the actual stock numbers on the Bred ones themselves is, a knowing leaky little faucet. So why do this? Why have this fire hose of marketing when the stock is so low? And the real goal of all marketing is to create a customer. And with Hype Cycle is you don't create that customer right away. You create it over the 6-year cycle that we're on right now. And that's where we are. The last 6-year or 9-year cycle just ended, and we're starting a new one. So for all the people who didn't get a Bred 1 in 2016 when they were like 10 years old or whatever, they didn't even have a chance then. If you're like 19 now, you at least have a chance if you live in the particular city where they're dropping. Or if you're an older collector and you got a Bred 1 in 2013, and then maybe you were still hyped about the 2016 pair because it was better leather and everything. And then now when it's coming out again, maybe you don't need this one, but they've done enough hype and changed enough things or made it closer to the original than ever before that you're back on and you need this one too. So this whole strategy worked for that person who just turned 19, and it worked for the person who got the 94 pair, the 2013 pair, the one I forgot in between, the 2001 pair, the 2016 pair. Or you're of the age and of a collection where you have too many of them now and you don't need another one. I'm probably at that point. I got the 2016 pair. I was really happy to get the 2016 pair. Shout out to A-Train Kicks for the old Jimmy Jazz hack. I got that. I got a local raffle. I even hit on Sneakers app when I could still hit on Sneakers app in Canada. So that's the point of all this marketing, is to create new customers for Jordan Brand, get a new cycle of fans into Jordan Brand, and continue the legacy of what Jordan Brand is. Start it all over again, and then in 6 to 9 years, do it all over again then. But I do think they missed the mark here. Like this disconnect, this resentment that's been building here, that's because the campaign is too big for stock being so small. And then the drip nature of it kind of makes it worse if you feel that way. For people who love marketing, they love it because they're like, oh, they have a massive rollout campaign for this. But if you're getting a disconnect or feeling resentment for it, each drip of the marketing is making it worse. It's like, oh, fuck these guys. What are they doing this for? And I guess it's been sort of said that this is supposed to be like a year-long campaign for the 40th anniversary. And, at the time when people are voicing their displeasure with it, no one really knows that. And even that's not really verified, but I guess we'll have to see it play out. But people are allowed to judge what they want and what they think in real time about it. That's basically what Twitter is for. But I think if they were going to do this banned campaign and the stock number was at what Lost and Found stock number was, or even just the distribution was, where it was at a lot of stores, a lot of people were having like Instagram raffles and local raffles, first come, first serve, all that kind of stuff, and not just 23 stores, that this massive campaign would have hit a little bit more. There wouldn't be this resentment and backlash to it. One of the backlash things that I wanted to talk about is everything should be a GR. All the Jordan 1s that are OG should always be available on the wall, just like how white on white Air Force Ones are. That's a classic. Converse Chucks are a classic, and those are always available. Why aren't these available? And I, of course, have disagreed with this opinion in the past and kind of explained why it is the way it is. And even the explanation I just gave about the cycle stuff kind of explains it. But I just wanted to say, even though I disagree with this opinion, the more and more I hear it, the more I value that others have this opinion. And I'll go back to the World War II history book stuff that I've been reading about. And one of the books I read was about like, how did Hitler become elected chancellor legally? And he was a minority leader who kind of politicked his way into becoming the chancellor. And so minority leader, that means that there were more opposed to him than voted for him. And so at the time in Germany, there was a Versailles Treaty after World War I, which is very unpopular in Germany because there was a lot of harsh restrictions. And then the democratically elected government at the time was very left-leaning, and they were the ones blamed for it. But the other parties were too fractured and couldn't unite, even though they had a majority, if they could. People were wary of communists. And one of the things that kind of just stuck out for me was there wasn't a strong opposing conservative party at the time. If there was, voters could have voted that way to voice their displeasure. It just didn't exist for various reasons. And that's how the Nazis were able to gain those voters. So what I'm really trying to say is that opposing points of view are actually very important for a healthy community. Imagine if everyone is just talking about things from an industry's point of view. And imagine if it's the opposite. Imagine if we got zero insights ever from what sneaker brands are doing and why. So whenever there's opposing points of view on something, and it is, relatively minor, like a sneaker release and sneaker marketing. So instead of trying to shout it down or say this is stupid for anything that I don't agree with, like I don't agree that all OG Jordans should be GR, it should sit and go on sale, it should be on the Foot Locker wall. I disagree with that, but I find value in the people that have it and do voice it. So I don't know if I'm communicating that correctly, if bringing up Hitler to do it makes sense either, but maybe this is still secretly a therapy episode. So since this has been secretly a therapy episode, let's go through the 5 stages of sneakerhead grief when it comes to the Bred ones. And we're just going through it, so the more that you're aware of it, the more that you can kind of think about it and process the feelings about it. So number 1, denial. Early on we saw this. We saw people saying, it's going to be a lot of stores. It'll probably be like Lost and Found Chicago 1s. And then later when it came out that it's only 23 shops, no, there's going to be more drops than that. There's going to be sneakers. There's going to be sneakers pass. There's going to be exclusive access. There's going to be restocks. There's going to be more than this. There's more than these 23 shops getting pairs, man. Just trust me, bro. These stores with the white glove service, they can't backdoor all the pairs, right? They got to sell some through the front door. Nike's going to be sitting in like an FBI van across the street, looking through a little peephole at them, aren't they? Someone should monitor these groups and make sure they sell it out the front door. That was the denial phase. The anger phase, what the fuck? 23 shops? They can't keep getting away with this. I don't even live near these shops. Or, of course, the back door will be wide open. And then there's always going to be the anger to anyone in the format of like, I thought y'all hated Jordan 1s. I thought y'all said Jordan 1s were on the way out. I thought y'all said they were going to sit. I thought y'all said you weren't going to pay $250. Of course, anger for the overall marketing. Put some band bars on D's nuts. Anger for DJ Khaled getting a pair. Fuck that guy. Why has he got a pair? He hasn't said one word about his people. Now he's like opening a box. And of course, anger that a casual person won't understand this marketing campaign. Won't someone please think of the children who can't cop a pair? Please think of the children. So that's the anger phase. The anger phase is probably the most fun phase. Bargaining. They should just make everything a GR. It's basically bargaining. And of course, the classic bargaining is, if I just sell off a few pairs, I can just pay resale for these. The price is coming down. It was like $1,000 earlier, and it's like $650 right now. A week after the drop, it might be like $450. That's nothing. That's 2 pairs. Depression, that's the sad phase. At least give me a chance, man. It's not even near my city. Or even good luck to all the winners. I'm really happy for you. That's basically depression. There's acceptance, of course. Acceptance is the one that everyone is ready to move on. All right, I tried what I could. I can always try again in 6 years. I'm done with this. On to the next. There's actually a secret 6th stage that Kubler-Ross didn't tell you about. They keep it kind of under wraps, but that stage is where you go fuck yourself.